Computer. This is the Tom Bigby Tales, and I'm your host, Shannon Evans. I podcast about Northeast Mississippi on a small town on the Tom Bigby River, and sometimes I podcast on the rest of the state. Today I have with me Mary Frances Hurt, the granddaughter of Mississippi John Hurt, a significant blues man who was a guitar player who traveled the world and introduced people to the Mississippi blues and his particular style of finger picking. The the museum was burned not long ago, and we're pretty sure it was not an accidental fire, that it was arson, although that remains to be proven. And the story continues today. Mary Frances and I have been searching for a Mississippi state marker that was at Avalon that had been broken, probably by either farm equipment or mowers for the state, for the highway. And we knew it was there and it was broken, and we were waiting for the county to pick it up and take it to be repaired by the state, and it disappeared. And Mary Frances is the one who paid to have this sign made. So technically it's her property. Mary Frances, thank you so much for being on the Tom Baby Tales today. And let's start talking about this sign and our adventures on trying to find this sign and how it's different than the blue sign that was up at the Valley store.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for having me this afternoon. And man, it has been a journey for sure. Man, I think I keep hoping that I will wake up from this nightmare, but it continues. It has been a long and arduous task of just everything that I've done for the last 35 or 40 years of trying to preserve my grandfather's legacy and bring him home and have him to be welcome there. And I've just met with nothing but opposition after opposition. And it's really, really bad. I purchased that marker in 2003, and it took me a lot to save the money for that marker, to have it put there at the site of the old Avalon store.
Can you tell the significance of what's on that sign and how that one's different than the one up at the Valley store, than the Blues Trail sign?
The state marker actually have the truth written on it, because I made sure of that. It told the marker had the actual discovery of my grandfather and his life there in the town of Avalon. And it's different by the fact that it's not, his life is actually not shared by another musician as the Blues Trail marker is, which is a lie. That he was discovered by Willie Normar. And
yeah, we know that's a tall tale.
That's not the truth at all. But this marker was significant in that it was in the place where he actually played at the store in Avalon. Unlike the marker that was the Blues Trail marker that was placed at the Valley store and said that my grandfather played there, which he never did. He never did. He wasn't even welcome in that store.
What would have happened if he'd gone to that Valley store?
Pardon me?
What would have happened if he had tried to go and play his music on the porch of that Valley store?
Oh my goodness! At the time that my grandfather was discovered, I mean, he would have been lynched for sure, as his father was when he was 3 years old. So no, he was not welcome to play at that store, and I protested bitterly that that marker should have been placed there in the first place, because it added no truth or significance to it. Matter of fact, it was actually a slap in the face to put it there when he wasn't welcome at that store in his lifetime.
Well, what's the significance of the one that was at Avalon? The one that's that we're talking about tonight that was broken, and you and I found it broken, and we're trying to get it replaced?
Well, the significance of that marker, it was it epitomized my grandfather's love for that town. As one of his songs said, Avalon, my hometown. He played in that community and lived in that community, and those are the people that supported him, and that was the store that he actually played all of these many years. And when he was rediscovered in 1963, is where they came looking for him at that store. So,
And explain exactly what the Avalon store was.
the Avalon store, it was the Stinson store. It was the mecca for the community. It was the Walmart of that day. It was a market where the sharecroppers, most of the people in my community were sharecroppers, and this was the main store where they had their credit for that. These people were able to get their seeds and their groceries there, and to purchase clothing, and for those that could not afford it, they were able to get credit there, that they would be able to pay their bill on an annual basis as they were paid as sharecroppers. It was a major hub for the African American people there. It was a place of community, and Miss Stinson and her husband made it so that these people would come there, and it was the heartbeat of the Avalon community. But especially for African Americans who were poor poor people, and they were welcome there to purchase their goods and whatever social activity they had on a Saturday, where my grandfather would go and play for the locals there, which was their only outlet after a long day's work in the fields. So it was very significant. So it was, for me to put that sign there, was not only did I pay homage to the people that was good to my grandfather and my family and all the African American family in that community, it was home. And to put that sign there, it brought homage to all of the wonderful people that lived there.
Uh-huh. Well, when you and I went down there and found that broken sign, that was last summer, right? That was last August?
Yes, it was last. It was actually, it was in June.
It was in
Of
June.
last year.
Last year, last summer is a blur. We did so many things.
We did a lot of things. When we came down for the conference at Cleveland, and we found the sign down at that point.
Okay. And then we reached out to Josh, your Board of Supervisors member, and he said that the county would take care of it until we could get it fixed. And he never picked it up.
That's exactly correct. And then we contacted Brother Rogers, who is
he's over that state program. Yeah, he's over that state program.
And at the time, all of the marker needed was to have like a lynch pin put back in it to have it reinstalled. But the bell of that marker was not broken.
No, it was not. It just needed to be put back on and the pin put back through it.
That's all it needed.
And then it disappeared. When we came back in October, so we saw it there in August. We called Josh again, Josh Hurst, and asked him because he had said he would pick it up. We didn't just out of the blue say, he said he would pick it up and make sure Brother Rogers got it, since neither of us lived in Avalon. And then I came back in October and it was gone. You were with me. Were you with me then?
Yeah, the marker was still there when we did when the people came out to certify us to make the museum a national landmark.
Yeah,
The marker
that was in August, wasn't it?
that was in August. The marker was still on the ground.
Yeah.
They had not picked it up, and nor had the state came out to fix it as they stated that they would.
And so it disappeared sometime after that.
It disappeared. It disappeared
Before the festival.
The last of August is when I contacted Josh Hirsch because at that time we wanted to have the marker the marker fixed on Highway 7 and have the marker at the Blue Store removed to the site again in preparation for the annual Memorial Walk.
Which they didn't move either.
Which they did not move either.
Which we had to get moved.
Exactly.
And we know what happened there. And and the sheriff and all his press releases. Anyway, and the Blues Trail sign is now with Alan Hammonds, who works on the Blues Trail markers and is doing the restoration work on it. But the other one, according to Alan Hammond, so Alan got a phone call from Sheriff Clint Walker about 2 weeks ago? I think it was about 2 weeks ago. And
okay, I don't know. I don't know exactly when. I know it's been more than 2 weeks that Alan Hamlin had gotten a call from the sheriff. Okay. But the thing is that Sheriff Walker knew I was looking for that marker.
Well, but here's the funny thing. I mean, the whole story, according to Alan, was Alan got a phone call from the sheriff. The sheriff told him, Sheriff Clint Walker told him that a man who was arrested and in jail and awaiting trial was trying to cut a deal. And he said, "Oh, I know where the Emmett Till sign is." And I don't even know if Clint Walker knows who the heck Emmett Till is, but he sure didn't know anything about an Emmett Till sign. And he told the guy, "Well, where is this sign?" And it was at some people out in the woods, some redneck scrappers, and I'm gonna just call them that because that's really all they are. They're scrappers out in the wood. And I guess Clint Walker or one of his deputies went out there to see what it was, and it was the missing sign. It was the Avalon sign. These scrappers had picked it up, and in the photograph, it's leaning against a bed of a truck that's been removed off a pickup truck, and there's some butane or gas cans behind it for like propane or something, and some other bits of metal. And Alan said, Mr. Hammond said, he said, "Well, it's not a Blues Trail sign. That's a state sign. That belongs to Brother Rogers. But we don't know whatever became of the sign and why." And you never heard from Clint Walker. Have you yet to hear from the sheriff about your stolen property?
I have not heard from Clint Walker since he said that that fire that he announced was no foul play on. I have not talked to
before the ATF and the state fire marshal had even
since February 21st, when he told me that the fire marshal and the FBI had agreed that there was no foul play. And I right out told him he's a bald-faced liar. And he refused to talk to me anymore. And when I called him and Alan Hammond told me that they had found Daddy John's marker, that I paid over $5,000 for it to have that marker installed there. That was it was a state marker, but it actually belonged to my family.
Yeah. So apparently, so the sheriff still hasn't called me back either. I've called him twice about this sign. So since it's been quote found, I'm going to call again tomorrow. I'm going to call every day until I go down there. But Alan Hammonds called him again yesterday, and he called Alan back and said the deputies went and picked the sign up, and it's at the sheriff's office. So I got to go pick it up for you.
But the point in that, that's wonderful. But this guy, I mean, how this sign belongs to me that I paid for, and if I had taken something that belonged to someone else, I would be in jail right now.
Absolutely.
This man will not so much as give me a call back about something that directly relates to me.
But Mary Frances.
He's calling Alan Hammond, who
Mary
has
Frances.
nothing to do with this at all.
This is the same sheriff who said who told me he thought you had dementia.
Well, I do. I'm crazy as hell.
Well, get in line. Why? Why is
he has to? He's living in the 1800s, not me.
So Mary Frances, why do you think? Let's go back. With the Blues Trail sign, he put out all those stupid press releases about how the sign was stolen. The other one, the Blues Trail sign, not the state marker, and we had the Blues Trail sign with the Mississippi John Hurt Foundation. It was safe and sound, and you had the information. You have permission from the Blues Trail Commission to move that sign, and Josh Hurst never would move it, but he never would tell you why. And he kept promising to move it, and then he never did. And then he told Mr. Hammond that he couldn't move it because it was on private property. Then we have the sheriff out here making all these statements, and then when I came to town, he asked me, did I know you? And I said yes. And he said, well, I believe Miss Hurt has dementia. And I said, no, I think she's just angry because y'all are playing games. So probably I didn't help your case much there by telling him that.
Well, I didn't, I didn't help myself when I told him he was a goddamn liar. That how in the world? Now he's sheriff, and now he's a fire marshal, and he's an FBI agent, and he just got it all wrapped up.
Well, he does have it all figured out
within hours.
Yeah.
And when I called last week, and I asked to speak to Sheriff Walker, his assistant said, "Why did I need to talk to him?" I said, "Well, he called Alan Hammond about a marker that I own, that I purchased from the state. And why is he calling Alan Hammond about something that directly relates to me? Why is he not talking to me about it?" And so, well, and this the assistant did not know what he was talking about. She thought he was talking about the Blues Trail marker, and she indicated to me, "Well, the family has the marker." I said, "What marker are you talking about?" And she told me it was the Blues Trail marker, and that the family had it. I said, "That is a lie. You're talking to the person who had the marker, and it's now in the hands of Alan Hammond." Walker is not even telling the assistants in his office any truth at all, because they clearly did not know.
So have you heard back from the Blues Trail Commission anything about moving that sign?
No.
About reinstalling it? Or is Alan in charge of all of it at this point? Alan Hammond.
Alan Hammond is in charge of that.
Okay. Well,
I
think he's a fair person to work with.
I trust Alan Hammond on a riding a turtle than I would Clint Walker on a charger.
Well, you got a point there.
He's terrible, and he's not. I don't know how in God's name he can represent that county as being the top sheriff there, and the things that he's doing is just so unjust and so racially biased.
Well, he does.
If I had
he does seem to be protecting the interests of certain white groups of people, including Charles Spain over there by the graveyard, by the cemetery, over protecting your property and returning stolen property, et cetera, et cetera. He seems very lax in his duties when it comes to protecting your interest in that county as opposed to the interest of that abandoned Valley store and those owners' property, or Charles Spain and the land that he stole.
He put out a press release on something that did not even happen. It said the Valley store was broken in. That Valley store is a shell. It doesn't even have a floor. It has nothing but broken windows. And it was an insult, a total insult, a slap in the face.
Well, you know what that was about.
To put that marker in front of a place that my grandfather wasn't even welcome to come into.
Mary Frances, you know what that was all about from the sheriff and those people, don't you?
You know, I don't.
They were trying to villainize you and create a storyline that would be acceptable for why they were going to do whatever they were going to do next, to excuse their bad behavior. Here's my impression, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. Your family appears to be the only African American family that owns property on that side of the county of any size. I don't know anybody, I don't know any other property owned by a Black family of more than 20 or 30 acres like your family owns.
My great-grandfather, Jerry Richardson, owned 680 acres of property. 680 acres of property. We were the only African-American family in that area to date. And they have stolen property from us since my grandfather, James Richardson, passed in 1984. And it was done primarily by Wilton Neal, the tax assessor.
Well, he's gone now, so I'm hoping I can go look at those maps now.
What map that I left?
Yeah, no kidding.
That man has wiped away generations of land taken. And what they're trying to do, and what Clint Walker and all those people is trying to run us out of there on what little property that we have left.
Well,
we are the only.
Well, they're trying to gentrify that whole area to make it into little hunting refuges and farmlets for people who don't, white upper middle class people who don't want to live in Greenwood, who want to live away from Greenwood but work in Greenwood.
And they were allowed to do that. Like the doctor who has an office, Dr. Costco. Dr. Costco moved across that creek and where how he got that land and took part of our land and threatened my mother until she died. And I didn't find the records of that until after she passed away. I'm the executive of that estate. Mm-hmm. And I'd be damned if they take another 3. So they're all of those things that they're doing is toward me. And so they're using my grandfather, Mississippi John Hurt, as a way to get back at me.
Okay. Well, let's shift a little bit and talk about this year's festival. When is the festival going to be? Because first of all, let's explain why you're having the festival without the museum.
I have to. I have to. If they're by burning that museum down, is their way of getting rid of me, or to stop any progress that we've made as far as a family's concerned, they can forget that. Because as long as I have breath in my body, what little property we have, I'm going to hold on to that.
Well, and part of it too
And
is the house isn't the festival. The house was a symbol of where he lived and his humble beginnings. But that that wasn't the sum of John Hurt.
I think they think so.
Well, they're
I
wrong.
think they think so. And they're absolutely wrong. But with the outpouring of support that I've gotten around the country has been tremendous. And the people that truly respected and loved Daddy John, they've proven themselves to be, and that is why I cannot go quietly into that good night. I cannot. Everything that Daddy John stood for, and all of the oppression that he withstood, and still came back and had love for that place. I cannot tarnish his legacy, his image, by being hateful and bitter. It doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination. The things that kept him, the door closed to him in that county, and to bring his legacy back there. I cannot, in good conscience, just dust my hand because they burned that museum down and leave. And if I do that, everything I've done for the last 40 years has been for naught.
Mary Frances, you knew your grandfather, and what would he say to all of this that's going on? How would he have dealt with it?
Oh gosh, I you know, the thing that I wrestle with greater is that I'm dealing with both of my grandparents. That property, that I was able to bring that house back there, and I had a little piece of both sides of my family, the Richardson as well as the Hurts, and to not stand up for in face of this great travesty and great injustice. It would be a detriment and for both of my on both sides of my grandfather.
Uh-huh.
It would all that has kept me or made me the person that I am, to the knowledge that I have of my grandparents and their perseverance to have and to live a decent life and to stand up for what they believe and to fight for what they wanted. And I don't mean have to and to overcome the kind of injustice that they did and still maintain it. And for me to just walk away or be ran away, there's no way in the world I could live with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly don't want to die with this charge on my hand. If they were able to keep it and to maintain it, then I would be remiss to run at this juncture. And if I don't secure it, when my head is cold, they will take the rest of our property.
True. They
And
will.
it hasn't been easy. I mean, it has been easy. If I miss paying the taxes, I'm one day late paying the taxes, then I get a notice. Then there's a notice in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been for the last 25 years.
Mm-hmm. So, Mary Frances, when is the festival this year?
The festival will be October 4th and 5th.
Okay. And it's
October 4th.
it's at the farm where the museum was. People can see the burned out shell of what was the museum. The church is still there. And the church is still a significant part of this festival. There's a stage.
Well, let me correct that. It's going to be the 5th and 6th. Is that Saturday and Sunday, October.
Okay.
And that Saturday we will have, hopefully we'll have music and we'll and hopefully this year if we are different in that we'll have people who will come and play and who care about the cultural preservation of African American people in the state of Mississippi. Because our culture is disappearing in every way. All that's not recognized is being burned and desecrated.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's nothing sacred for us anymore. Not even our grave sites. And I've experienced it all. Within the last 3 years, it's just been one devastating thing after another.
Well, at last year's festival, we had the dedication for the memorial out at the St. James Missionary Baptist Cemetery, where your parents are buried and where your grandfather, Mississippi John Hurt, is buried. And
it's not. See, the thing of this, it's not just my parents are out there. There are thousands of African American indigenous people on that hill. Thousands.
And the Board of Supervisors gave half of that property away so that someone else, this Charles Spain, could build a family cemetery on top of an existing cemetery, on top of existing graves. So
how dehumanizing is that? This man has his bench on the head of on a cemetery, on a grave site.
So the bench is over a child's headstone, over a child's grave site.
A child's headstone.
And his wife is on top of a black man's grave. And he doesn't care. And when we went out there this year for the festival and for the dedication of that monument to protect and prevent further desecration, tell a little bit about what the Spain family did.
The Spain family purchased land that's surrounding that cemetery. And the person who sold him that property clearly stated, except the St. James Cemetery.
Yes, that's what the deed and the papers in the courthouse all say.
Except the St. James Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
So with the County Board of Supervisors, now it's not that Charles Spain did not know that was a cemetery. He clearly knew that. He did not want to furnish the land that he purchased by putting a grave site.
Uh-huh.
And he asked for permission, and the County Board of Supervisors did not take the time, and Wilton Neal, who was on that board, knew that property backwards and forth.
Wilton Neal was the tax assessor for that county.
Yes, he knew that. So when I took the map there and showed him on both sides of that, this was the cemetery, Wilson Neal admitted, you're exactly right. When I went to the meeting, called a meeting with the county board of supervisors to show them the error that they given this grave site that was already a grave site, and this man was buried on top of other people. The county lawyer said, "Do you have an attorney?" I don't know what to tell you. You have less than 2 minutes. You have 5 minutes to talk about it.
Well, what I find interesting is they expected you to have an attorney. They easily gave that land to Charles Spain. The board of supervisors just gave it to him. But when you asked why did they give it to him, and it was your land and not theirs to give, they couldn't. I said, why couldn't they just give it right back to you? It wasn't Charles Spain's, and they were like, that's not how it works. Well, it worked that way the first time. Why didn't it work that way the second time?
If here's this guy, I mean, when I brought this to this man's attention, and they clearly went out there to see all of these grave sites that was there. There is no way in the world, every place you step in that grave at that Hurt Cemetery is a grave. And because most of those grave sites are Native American Choctaw grave sites, they're sacred graves, and many of this, if they're fortunate enough, they have a stone on it, and it's closely knit as those graves are. Because where he has a whole plot there where he buried his wife, and he has a double headstone put over these graves for him to be buried there. And then his cousins are buried there. They could not help but to bury on top of somebody. There's no possible way, because there would be no graves on the other side of the road.
Correct.
That was the church yard. And every African American church in the state of Mississippi buried on the church ground.
So let's summarize this. So a year ago, we found the sign broken. We started that was the state marker down in Avalon. We found the Avalon sign broken. And that was in June. We started trying to contact the state and working with the county board of supervisors, Josh Hurst, who is your supervisor for where your home is there. We got nowhere.
Nowhere.
Then
we at the time when I came down there for the meeting to meet with the Blues Trail Commission regarding moving that sign that's at that Valley store.
The Blues Trail sign.
Right. The Blues Trail box, to have it moved from in front of that from that Valley store, which was hidden in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
To have it moved. It is then that I found that marker was broken.
Okay. And then we worked to try and get the Avalon sign dealt with and the Blues Trail marker sign.
Get the Blues Trail marker moved and have the state marker repaired.
That was in the summer. And we met with the Blues Trail Marker Commission. We went to Jackson and met with the commission. Then in October, so that was June, July, into August. In October was last year's festival. And the Spain family drove up there and made a scene in front of your international organization of people who came to visit, people from Italy and other places in Europe and from all over the United States and Japan, etc. They're marching peacefully, singing hymns down a county road to the cemetery. And Charles Spain and his wife made a scene out there.
Drove through the crowd, and we did not call it a festival last year. It was a memorial walk, and we had invited people from internationally from around the world, and 5 countries represented. It came to that.
Yes, and I did an
march.
interview. I did an interview with 2 of the people who had been there. One was a student from China, and the other was an instructor from Chicago, from Carnegie Mellon, who talked about how unbelievable this experience was for them. That these people were behaving so boorishly and so bigoted, and screaming and disrupting the memorial march and the commemorative unveiling of the marker that the Mount Zion Memorial Fund had erected. Then that was October. Then
And so,
when did the museum burn? February.
Okay, well, in the latter part of August, we had the state, the historical,
Oh yes,
Department of Archives and History come out, and they evaluated the church and the museum, and they designated
they wanted to put the museum
as,
on. It was going to be on the National Historic Register.
right, and so we got approval for that. And so I got all of the I met all the qualifications. And the final piece of that was in February, when we were approved, and all they had to do was come out and take the pictures of the museum inside and out for the registry. February 20, that was President's Day.
That it burned.
It was President's Day that the people came out to do.
The
February
final
20th,
survey.
to take the final pictures for the registry.
And that was the last pictures made.
The last pictures made. 5 hours later, February 21st, 5 o'clock in the morning, the museum burned to the ground.
And it's still under investigation.
Yes, but I got confirmation from the state fire marshal, and he said it was definitely not
electrical.
It was not electrical at all. And he said that they had dogs on the ground, and the dogs sat on 2 places that signified that there had been an accelerant.
So the sheriff is remember, he's an expert in electricity. Within 2 hours of the fire, he's telling us that it was electrical fire.
And I know that wasn't the case. That the electricity is always cut off in the museum. Always.
Yeah, it's cut off at the pole.
No way. I mean, that house was 158 years old. 158 years old.
Mm.
When I moved it there, new electricity, no problem. Sit there for 30 plus years in that same place. And when it became a national landmark, all of a sudden it has an electrical problem.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that brings us to February when the building burned.
And then here's the part that really, Clint Walker made a point to call the state on the same day to tell them that the museum had burned down, that they need not do anything else. He made all of these phone calls.
To the state?
To the state.
To the MDAH, to the people at the Department of Archives and History.
Yes.
I did not know that.
He called the same day
He also called the newspaper and told them it was electrical fire. They didn't call
He
him.
called.
He called the paper.
I don't want. I don't. I mean, I get it now, but
But he's
this
never
man made
called
a
about that
point.
sign. He's never called about the
He
sign in Avalon.
he never called about the sign in Avalon. He never called about anything. He never called me to tell me any updates or anything. He
Well,
just kept
he's
making
never
press
called he's
press
never
on me.
called the state or the newspaper about the desecration of the graveyard.
He did not call the state about the desecration of the grave. He did not call nothing that has happened to my family.
Okay,
Has he ever made
so now
any
we've
fuss
gotten
about?
to
At all?
February.
Nothing.
So now we got to February. The rest of February and into March, we dealt with the Blues Trail sign and him saying it was stolen when it was removed with
After I made
permission
repeated calls to
from
tell
the
them
Blues
that it
Trail
was not,
Commission and was taken to Alan Hammond.
I made repeated calls to that office and to tell them that I had that Blue Trail marker, that it wasn't stolen, and I gave them, I showed them proof. I had a letter from the Blues Commission to give me permission to move that sign.
And then all of a sudden, we started getting pressure from the Blues Trail Commission about that sign.
So the Blues Trail requested it back. Alan Hammond picked it up, and he had it ever since. And when I talked to the sheriff's office, Carroll County Sheriff's Office, they still think I have this marker.
I know.
I told him otherwise.
He keeps publishing crap about that. And pardon my language. I know I shouldn't curse on a podcast, but it's just infuriating. And that leads us full circle to the conversation I had with Mr. Hammonds from Hammonds and Associates, the people who manage the Blues Trail signs, about the Avalon sign, and that he was able to find out information about a sign that's not part of his program. It belongs to the Department of Archives, to the State Department of Archives and History, but was paid for by you. So technically, it's kind of your property as well.
Exactly.
He was able to find out information before you were.
And the sheriff still haven't called me or returned a call to me to tell me anything. He refused to talk to me. He hadn't returned
my calls either. I believe I'll be calling him first thing tomorrow morning.
But I mean, if he is protecting the rights of everybody, why? How come he's not calling me?
I don't know.
Oh, I know. That's a rhetorical question. But I'm the one with dementia, and I guess every Black person that he refused, this woman that owned this lounge that he keep intimidating.
Oh, the juke joint.
I guess she has so she has dementia too.
I guess so. She can't be more than 35, maybe 40. I guess she has dementia too.
So anytime you expect something that's right, you have dementia?
I guess. He seems to think so. I think he was just trying to he didn't know about our connection and our work together, and I think he was just trying to sow doubt in my mind so that I wouldn't trust anything you said. But he has no idea how long we've known each other and how much we work together.
But the thing of it is, it's just common sense. It's just common sense. I mean, you're barking about a dilapidated store that has no connection to anything, just a symbol of racism. That's all that store represents. That Valley store. That's it. That's all. That's all it ever represented.
True. A symbol of segregation and hatred.
And a national landmark where people came from around the globe to this little shack.
Oh.
You cover up. You set the electric afire. Where my yard is all piled up, where these people drove up to my house the same day they destroyed this museum.
Yeah, they left
You
tire
see all the
tracks
evidence.
all the way up to your front door. Whoever was there left tire tracks up to your house front door. That's concerning.
Was that
As far away
electrical?
as that is from the museum, that's very concerning to me.
It's I mean, he did not. Here these people are that if they thought that marker was garbage, he wouldn't have tried to. The person wouldn't have tried to use it as leverage to offset a crime that he did that had nothing to do with that marker.
Oh, that's a good point. That is a very good point.
If he thought it was garbage, why would he? And if that's not related at all, that was not worth a call to the FBI and the ATF and the fire marshal for that connection.
Oh, that's true. Let's talk about that. So when Mary Frances spoke with the fire marshal, she told him about the missing sign down at Avalon and how it had been found at some alleged scrapper's house, which is very close to where the museum is, as in on the same road, down the same country dirt and gravel road. And how far would you say that's from the museum? 2 miles, if that?
What place? What?
Where the scrapyard, where the quote scrappers had your sign.
That scrapper is right down the road from Charles Spain.
Yeah.
They're on the cemetery road.
Yeah, so that's still not even 2 miles from the museum.
It's about 2 miles from the Valley store.
Yeah. So
so
the sign is down near the missing sign from Avalon in that huge county, and all those back roads, the road its own is down by the cemetery by Charles Spain, the person who wants you and your family and your part of the cemetery gone.
Exactly.
Now, there's some irony there. Or is that irony? Or is that there's no such thing as a coincidence? Now, so the fire marshal was never told by the sheriff that there was a missing sign attached to the Hurt family story, and that it's down a road where there's a family that has an axe to grind with the Hurt family, and never told the fire marshal. What did the fire marshal say when you told him that sign was found and where it was found?
He was absolutely floored, and he said that he didn't believe me. First of all, he said, I can't believe that if that marker was found, that I haven't gotten a call from the sheriff. And he called me back and verified. And I don't know whether he talked to the sheriff or what, but he verified that the marker hadn't been found. I just don't know to what extent. What is this going to do for the investigation at all? But I connected it.
Wow.
I mean, because it's not isolated at all. But those here's this that marker has been on Highway 7 for 20 plus years.
Mm.
And for him to, this was not some paper sign. It took effort for them to pick up that sign. At least it's 150 pounds, at least that. I
Uh-huh.
can't lift it. And the bell was not broken. So whereas I only needed to pay $50 or $60 to have a pin put in it, now the whole marker has to be scrapped,
Recast.
recast, and that's
Mhm.
an addition of $2,700.
So I wonder who owns that property where the marker was being stored.
Who owned it?
Yeah, who owned the
Um,
property where the marker was sitting?
it was according to what Alan Hammond said, the person who picked the marker up on that scrapyard.
So who
And
owns that scrap yard? Is that Charles Spain's son?
they're I don't know whether it's Charles Spain's son or not, but they're related.
I'm guessing I'll be doing some
They're related.
research.
But he would not. I don't know whether I asked Alan Hammond who were the people, what their name was. The sheriff would not divulge their name.
We'll be finding out. It's really easy to look things up. I can go to property records and find out. You
But
just
I
find out
mean,
who owns the property. Huh?
I mean, all I'm saying is that this man is definitely not. He's not handling this as the crime that it is because I'm black. He's not handling it that way. If he wanted me arrested for taking a sign that I have given permission to do, and he kept writing about it on behalf of the owners of that Valley store. Had no connection to my grandfather at all, but he wanted to take that sign back for them, and then lie about the store being broken into.
Well, but Mary Frances, it's easy.
I know I have all kinds
If he can villainize you, then you can no longer be the victim of a crime. You're the villain, you're the bad guy. He's trying to make you a bad guy.
Well, I'm sorry.
Because in Carroll County, black people cannot be the victims of crimes from white people. It doesn't fit their storyline. We know this.
Well,
It's
you
Carroll
only
County,
lynched.
Mississippi. We know this.
Well, in Carroll County, they lynched my grandfather,
Your great grandfather.
my great grandfather.
Isom. Yes, they did. Because he stood up to
12 children.
he stood
12
up.
children. He disappeared in Carroll County.
They lynched him for standing up to white men who were taking advantage of the black women in the community sexually. And he was lynched for it.
I don't. The calls, the threatening calls that I got, that I reported to the fire marshal and to the FBI. You next. I reported that, those threats.
Have they ever told you where where the phone calls came from? Did they come from Carroll County or where?
That's still on investigation. When I talk to the fire marshal, he's going to pass that on to the ATF.
Okay.
the marker, and he said that whoever was down that road at 5 o'clock in the morning, they have the ability to get the cell phone records. And I pray to God that they find out who these people are. I don't care if it's my mother. I want them prosecuted to the highest extent of the law.
Yeah, that's terrorism. That's all
It's a
it
hate
is.
crime.
It is a hate
I
crime.
don't care. It's a hate crime and a threat to me or to anybody who's trying to do some good. Is a threat to everybody.
That's the truth.
I have a right. My family have a right to live there. My great grandfather bought that land 100 years ago, June of this year. 100 years old. We pay taxes there. We don't bother anybody. And all I've ever done for that county is to bring some good there. That's all. As opposed to terrorizing me, of trying to villainize me or destroy, they should be thanking me.
Yeah, no kidding. You actually brought tourism to that town.
From around the world. They weren't thinking about a tourist program until I brought that museum there.
That is true. They certainly didn't have any festivals or anything there. Heck, they only have one restaurant in the whole county, right?
That's exactly right. But
There's not even a grocery store in the county, is there?
No, there's no grocery store there.
You have to either have to go to Winona or
Vaden or
Greenwood
Greenwood or Grenada.
or Grenada. Oh yeah, forgot about that.
The Mississippi John Hurt Foundation has brought recognition to that county. And the people that in other states and abroad have supported me greatly. And the negative attention that it brought to Carroll County is overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, Mary Frances, let's try and close this on a positive note so that we can bring more attention to your festival, because people can support you in the rebuilding efforts and the commemorization of your grandfather's work, and to continuing to keep his voice and his work alive, despite what these knuckle-dragging mouth breathers in Carroll County want. You're still going to continue your festival.
I'm still going to try, and I still want to rebuild. But I can't. I need some help. I mean, I told you here I've had insurance on my property there, and I'm being denied that.
Yeah, they don't want to pay. They don't want to pay for the.
How can that be? I've had State Farm insurance, but ever since I've had that museum there, and my house, since 1997.
And they won't pay out.
No.
So you need to hire an attorney to deal with State Farm for their denial of claim. You need to rebuild the museum and we need to finish the restoration of the church. How can people donate to your organization? How can I mean, you are a 501c3, you are a
Yes,
nonprofit. How can
yes.
people make a donation to help you rebuild?
We have a GoFundMe. Mississippi John Hurt will rise again. Um, it's
So they can go
MS.
to your Facebook, your Mississippi John Hurt Foundation Facebook page to find that, correct?
That's correct. Info msjohnhurtfoundation.org.
Okay. And I will put the link to the foundation, GoFundMe, and to the Facebook page in the show notes tonight.
And if I could get it, if there's any attorney willing to help me, I would greatly appreciate that.
Okay. And the attorney would be first to help fight State Farm to pay the claim.
Yes. Legitimately, because I had insurance.
Okay. Okay.
And for them to, well, they said to partially deny the claim, and they told me the only thing that they will is give me $1,500 for content only. We're not gonna consider the building. And for some customary reason, I don't know why.
Well, and we have had an insurance investigator examine the policy and state that State Farm is not being honest and equitable. So we know that
No,
there's a problem.
the agent, the State Farm agent, which I purchased this, we knew. I just neglected to put this on her policy. We have the house, but I knew the museum exists in the church. That's the only reason they're giving me $1,500, because the agent acknowledged that she did not put this on the policy. She did
So
not
she
write
made
it.
the agent acknowledged she made the mistake.
Yes.
So they're
And
giving you $1,500 so you'll go away and be quiet. You aren't
What was
going away and being
$1,500?
quiet.
No, for the $1,500, I know that there's no way in the world they could replace the sentimental value of that house.
No,
But it will put another structure there.
it was a shotgun check that was iconic. It was very iconic of Mississippi, and it was the home of Mississippi John Hurt.
And the artifacts in it alone
Were worth more than $1,500.
Oh God, yes.
They were irreplaceable. So Mary Frances, I'm going to put those links in the show notes. As we get more data about what's going on, and of course, as we lead up to the fall festival, for 2024, would you be willing to come back on my show again and give us an update?
Oh, absolutely, I would. And I just want to give a shout out to those people who've been so supportive. Thank you so very, very much. So very much. Really appreciate it.
Well, Mary Frances, thank you so much for coming on the Tom Bigby Tales. Until next time.
Thank you, Shannon. Have a wonderful night.
You too.